Good morning. Sunny Tampa again. It's really good to see you guys. This is the third in my series on prenatal nutrition, and this has to do with stress. And stress is actually a nutrient that you either feed yourself or don't. I'd like you to feed yourself peace and quiet. And I have a PhD in I've suffered from the disease of overextension my entire life, so I know exactly what you're trying to do. And we are living in a culture that just totally promotes go baby go, don't take a moment off. Women in particular, good Lord. I finally, when I was a mom at home, I actually timed how many hours I was on, and it was about 100 hours a week. So then we women decided to add 40 hours to that. So if you're wondering why you're pooped, that's why. Most women that I talk to say, oh, Sarah, it's about time. I just don't have enough time. And that is a complete misnomer. I want you to get that it's never about time, ever. It's always about priorities. And what you've got to get straight is, what are your priorities? And you got to whittle them down. I am constantly forcing myself to downshift. Sarah, that's too much on my plate. So downshift, really look at what are your top priorities. And when you're about to have a baby, if this is your first baby, I want you to really think about how much time do you want to have with that baby? How important is a full-time job? Is there any way you can do 3/4 or half-time? Is there any way you could do half-time and work from home maybe sometimes? Any way to make it work so that you've got time with your child, which is so important. And there is no one that's going to love your child the way you do. So for most women, there are some women where actually it's more stressful for them to be at home. If you're one of those women, that's great. The most important thing is really getting clear about what's important for you and what makes your heart sing. So if you need to be working full time, and that's the best way to be a mother for your child, go baby go. Just make sure you have good babysitters and things like that. At-home babysitters are wonderful, so that you're not stressed out about where your baby is and who's taking care of your baby. So just remember, it's never about time. It's always about priority. So when you're saying to yourself, I don't have time, the answer is, what am I prioritizing? All right, so the other thing that happens if you have other children and you're about to have a baby and that baby's going to start growing up, I want you to pay attention to extracurricular activities. Again, we live in a society where women think that their kids have to have 2 and 3 things, after school, on the side, something to do. And if you're a working mom, that's just insanity. You've got to keep your kid to like 1 maximum extracurricular activity, or you're going to go nuts and no one's going to be happy. An unhappy mother is just never a good idea, because in so many ways, you're the captain of the ship at home, unless you've got a pretty unusual husband who's really taking a lot of the stress off of you. And some women do, and that's great. But statistics show that still we carry the burden of what's going on in the home, what's going on in the kitchen, all that good stuff. So pay attention to what you're thinking about signing your child up for. That means that you've got to pick them up, take them there, all that good stuff, and follow them around. I was a single mom on and off, raising my kids. There's all kinds of methods of reducing your stress. I used to do cooperative cooking, where I had 3 other friends that were logistically close to me who also liked to eat the way I ate. And we sort of agreed on what the ingredients would be or not be in the meals. And so basically Monday I would cook a ton of food, which is more fun. Cooking a ton of food and cooking for other people, just more fun. So I'd cook a ton of food, they'd come over, and we'd either sit around the table, which was great fun, and the kids would eat in 2 seconds like they usually do, and they'd go off and play, and then we'd get adult time. That's fun. But it would be an hour. It'd literally be from 6 to 7, or whatever times work for you. But it'd be from 6 to 7, and then we'd be off. And often we'd cook enough food so I could take extra for lunch the next day, that sort of thing. Tuesday I go to, so if I'm house A, then Tuesday I go to house B. They'd be doing the same thing. Then I go to, on Wednesday I'd be to house C, and Thursday house D. So I cooked once a week. Yay. So that's a way of doing it. People have done it where they exchange food at work. Make it work for you. Get creative. Think outside of the box. Quite, and I would love to hear from you about, you know what, we can get this going here on this page as far as what are some of the clever things you've done to make your life simpler. Like, I'm going to tell you my ideas. When I was a single mom, I was also running a business, but it was a business where most of the meetings were at night, and I kept saying to myself, God, I need a house on wheels. And it dawned on me, it's like, oh, that's called an RV. So literally my one car turned into an RV. so I ran around with my daughter and my 2 golden retrievers in the back of the RV, would lock her in the RV and the driveway of the home I was at. Actually, most of the time I didn't need to lock her in. These were, you know, neighborhoods and meeting places. She'd take the dogs for a walk. And then sit down and do her homework. She had a kitchen. She could cook her, you know, she'd heat up her dinner, make a cup of tea, whatever, and then go to sleep. And so I'd get in, it'd be late, she'd go to sleep, and I'd drive home. So there's a whole lot of ways of creating a life that's fun and simple. And oh, by the way, I was homeschooling my daughter. That's why I needed the house on wheels as well. So we were always together, and it was a ton of fun. So those kinds of things are possible. Also, the other thing that you can think about is when you move, find a house that's got a wing, an extra room, a mother-in-law apartment attached, any of those kinds of things where you can fold in a live-in help. Can you imagine coming home to dinner being started, to the laundry being done, to things being picked up, to somebody else picking up your child at the after-school activity? Begin to think about that, because if that's taken care of, then your life gets a whole lot simpler. You just have to think ahead about, you know, what am I renting? And I never had a ton of money. But I could rent a place with an extra bedroom for a whole lot cheaper than I could hire someone to do all those things for me. So you exchange, 10 hours a week makes a huge difference, even if they're just doing 10 hours for you. Often these people were working part-time, and they, you know, getting free overhead was just huge for them. So there's just all kinds of ways of doing these things. Now, the other thing that I want to explain to you is the metabolism of stress. People do not understand what goes on in their body. And I often use most of the nurses in hospitals. If you walk into most hospitals, the nurses, as far as I'm concerned, are a scary group of people. And here's why. These are some of the most wonderful human beings in the whole wide world. Nurses are some of my favorite people. But the amount of stress that they're under in a hospital is maximal. It's just off the charts. So they're under a ton of stress. Often their sleep cycles are all messed up. And if you'll notice, most of them are obese. They got some serious weight problems, and I can tell you it's mostly because of stress. So here's what happens when you're under stress. But before I get into that, I want you to remember that stress is not what happens to you. It's how you take it. And this is one of the most important things to remember, that stress has to do with how we're receiving what's happening outside our lives rather than what is true. So that's a whole nother lecture. But at any rate, here's what happens. We get under a sense of stress, and that's a fight or flight. It's like, holy cow, I've got to move into emergency mode here. And your adrenal glands, which sit on top of your kidneys, go into fight or flight. And that emits the hormone cortisol, all right? And cortisol is a stress hormone, and what immediately happens is your digestion shuts down. Nobody's home to digest your food, which makes total sense. If you, back in the olden days when the saber-toothed tiger was coming at you, it was like, whoa, okay, stop digestion, throw all the energy to my muscles, and also hold on to energy so I can create more fat. So if I can't eat for 2 days while I'm running away from the saber-toothed tiger, my body has energy to work on. So these are all the kinds of things that happen. The other thing that happens is when that stress hormone is emitted, your body becomes less sensitive to leptin. Leptin, L-E-P-T-I-N, is a hormone that tells you that you're full, that is sort of a hunger monitor. And it becomes less sensitive to leptin, which makes sense because you want to eat more food to store more food, because who knows when you're going to eat again, because you just had to flee your home. Get it? So, which means you're more hungry and you eat more stuff and then you start gaining weight. And with your hormones being out of balance, the other thing that happens, the more of that cortisol you're running, it actually suppresses the thyroid function. So, which means then again, if your thyroid isn't functioning well, your whole metabolism slows down, you start putting on weight. So all these things are going on. Now, add sugar, okay? Sugar and white flour, but sugar in particular. Sugar, there's just no question anymore. We know sugar creates more anxiety and more depression. So, oh good, that's what you need in a stressful life, some more depression and anxiety. And what do people turn to when they're stressed out? I just was sitting with a client yesterday and she goes, oh, you know, I just had a bad day, so I just had, I can't even remember what she had, but yeah, cookies. You know, I just wanted some cookies. So I had some cookies. I said, oh, that's great. So it's kind of like, I got away from the saber-tooth tiger. I climbed up a tree. I was all scratched up. It was a miserable day. And then I took a pistol out and shot myself in the foot. Get it? That's what eating sugar is all about. It's like, oh my word, you have just made it that much more difficult. I have been through some maxed out stressful situations in my life. Suicide, divorce, you name it. I've dealt with it. But I can tell you that when I'm going through that, I tighten my diet down like crazy. I am not eating a lot of sweets. I am realizing that the only way to get through this in one piece and not go down, because again, we've got research showing that when the stress is maxed out, when you're divorced, someone's died, moving, even changing jobs, these are all high stress situations. You better tighten it down with your diet, because the sugar's going to take you down. Promise. I see people all day long because of that. Okay. And sugar and white flour messes up your gut. If your gut's out of balance, if the bad guy bacteria are winning, which is what sugar and white flour does, your neurotransmitters, which are created in your gut, which then go up to your brain, those are your happy neurotransmitters, they're all messed up. So now you're more anxious and you're more depressed. Oh my word, why would you want to do that? So that is what's going on. And guess what's going on with your baby inside? When you are, again, research has shown, when mothers are under tremendous stress while they're pregnant, that baby has more challenges because that cortisone is running and that baby's getting that as well. So if you're under a whole lot of stress, first thing is to figure out how to work your mind better. Because if you're looking at the situation through a different lens, you can calm down. And the other thing is, you better move. Get your butt out and walk. I don't care what it takes, just move. Because again, they've done research and shown that you get out and walk for a half hour or you see a psychiatrist. Guess who does better? The people who get out and walk for a half hour. We're meant to move. It takes some of that stress off. So you are a wonderful human being. You're creating a new human being inside of you. And all of us women just want to love that baby. And just remember that if you're creating or you're sitting in a high stress situation, work hard at beginning to downshift all that stress. This is about a new life and about happy. So I'm going to sign off with that. And I want you to just have a great day and just keep working on all these wonderful ways to decrease your stress and show your children how to live a good life. And we're going to be back for more, so stay tuned on this page. I'd love to hear, do give me ideas on how you're coping with your stress, food ideas. You can text, you can email me, call me, whatever. All right? Y'all take care. Ciao.